Hey there, this is Jonathan, and in the following set of tutorials we're going to take a quick look at Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2014. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is creating a new project, and you have to do this before you can do anything at all. And I'm going to call mine Ken Burns Cats, and that's just because that's the project I'm working on. And one of the most important things is that you want to choose what is the location that you're saving this at. Now I've got a folder already called PremiereProCC2014, so that's where I'm going to be doing it, and then you'll select the folder and click Select Folder at the bottom. Now, one of the things to be aware of here is the video rendering and playback setting, and that's because right now I have the GPU acceleration turned on because I have an NVIDIA graphics card. If yours is only set to software only, just do be aware that certain things will be pretty slow, like rendering and other things like that. An NVIDIA graphics card really does help in this case. Of course, there I guess is some way to use like ATI graphics cards and get some acceleration as well, but I found that the NVIDIA cards seem to do a little bit better. The other things I'm not really going to worry about. I'm just going to click OK. And I'm right over what I already have there. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at real quick are the different windows that we have here. Now, there are some different workspaces already set up that you can explore, and these are different configurations of all the different windows here. The first one here is the source window. That's going to be our source audio, video, or image that we have coming in. The next thing is going to be the program window and the timeline window. These two are synced together. So anytime you're at one particular time, either in this window or that window, you're seeing exactly the same thing, meaning that you see the timeline here. These are our main tools. Over here on the left is our project window. We have our media browser info, effects, and markers, and we'll come back and look at a few of these. And then I did want to point out one other thing in particular up here called the effects controls. We'll be using this quite a lot as well. Now, if you're using Premiere Pro CC, let's see, our CS 5.5, you might see the windows are a little bit different, but they're all just windows. And you can move these things around any way that you want. You can actually move them side by side, and you know, you can get really infinite in your configurations. I like a workspace that I use, which I call the large right, and what it does is it gives me, since I have two monitors, it gives me my program monitor as a really large window over on the right hand screen. Since I'm making this tutorial, I can't really do that. So I'm going to go back to its original editing settings here. Now the next thing that we need to do is import some media. So we need to find some media. I just happen to have already picked out some images. I've got a story to tell about how my cats were looking at some chickens, and one of them in particular started smacking his lips thinking that they might be pretty tasty, and then they decided to chase the cats. I mean, chase the kittens. Oh, I can't even get it right. Chase the chickens. Anywho, I'm going to be using those images. So I've organized them into a folder called footage, and I also have the Pink Panther theme. Why I chose that, I have no idea, just did. And so I've got my images here and my audio, and those are in a folder called footage. Now you can actually drag each individual item into here to actually import it if you like. Now if you do that, what you want to do is try and mimic the structure that you have. So you'd create a bin here, and you'd call that footage, and then you might create another folder, and I'll call that images, and then I'd drag that inside the footage folder, and then I want to put that inside there too, but I can't really see it right now because I'm in icon view. But if I switch to list view, then you'll be able to see that I can drag that right into that image folder if I want. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete all of that. And the reason why is because a really quick way is once you've got things organized, once you've got things organized, you can just drag that folder right in, and it will import everything that's inside of it, and it will keep the same structure basically. It didn't put the images or the audio into a folder, so let me do that. So I thought it was going to keep the same structure, but it didn't exactly. So there are my images, and there's my audio. Now, one of the things I do like about using these bins or folders is that if you double click on them, you can bring them up in their own floating window, and then you can go to your icon view instead, which is really quite nice. Now, if these were videos, one other cool thing about it is that you can actually scrub these and select in and out points on the video, but that'll be for a much later tutorial. One other thing that's kind of cool that I learned recently is that if you press the tilde key on any window, it will actually come to full screen, which is great. So anytime you're on anything, you just press the tilde key, and that will toggle that particular window to full screen, which is quite nice. Anyway, the next thing that we need to do is create our first sequence. And so I'm going to create a new sequence by clicking on the new item here at the bottom, going up to Sequence. And there's lots of different settings here. I've chosen one by default that's going to be AVCHD 720p at 30. Reason I chose this is that AVCHDs usually compress to fairly small sizes. The 720p is the high def version, but it's really the smaller one than other ones out there. And the 30 is just because that's a typical frame rate. There are lots of other things in here that you can use, but just be aware that they can create very, very large files and other things like that. And the AVCHD is compressed, but for what we're doing here, it'll be great quality. And then I just give it an edit. So I'm going to call this the cat chase edit. And that's going to be the name of that comp. I'm going to go ahead and save this just to make sure before I go on. And let's take a look at how we might start. The first thing that we would want to do is usually put down our audio. So I'm going to double click on that audio and bring it up in here, and I can actually play with it by just clicking different places and hitting the spacebar. Now, I didn't realize that that would actually already still be on there, but I was playing around making a marker, and we're going to show you how that's done in just a second. It might be that we can create a marker here. Yeah, I guess you can at any point that you want. And then you can go ahead and can we go to the clear that selected marker, which is kind of cool. Now, the reason we might do this is because we know that we have certain edit points. So if we were to listen, da-dun, 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 ba-dun. So right there is where I'd want to make an edit, right on that spot. Now, what I can do is then I can actually go to this and give it a name, and I'll call it, there's going to be my first edit, or maybe cat comes in. So the nice thing about this is that it gives you particular points in your audio that you know you want to use. When you're ready to put this on your timeline, you just click and drag that right down to your timeline, and I'm going to put it on the audio 1. Now, in order to see my a waveform, you can actually click and drag that and move it down a little bit, and here you'll see I can still see that marker on there, and that's really, really helpful. 20 seconds is kind of a long time before anything happens, but who cares? 2, 3, 4, boom. Okay, so there's another one. Now, anytime that you want to make other markers, you can actually click on that item so it is selected, and then you can, I think, right-click and choose Add Marker somewhere, maybe. Funny enough, I guess I forget. I guess you just click that, M. M will work as well. And now you'll see, actually, it even appears up in my source window. So another place to do it, of course, is in your source window. Now, be aware that your source window is not necessarily synced to the other, but as soon as you make a marker, you'll see that go down onto your timeline. So, very nice to have that ability. Anyway, I'm ready to start bringing in some cats as well. So I'm going to change over to this view and just see what I want to do. I know the story I want to tell is I'm going to use this as my first image. And if you zoom up, you can actually scroll that in a little bit. You'll see that every time you bring in an image here, it's only 5 seconds. To play this, all you do is go back to the beginning of the timeline and press the spacebar. Now you can also hit the end key and the home key, and that will jump between different places. There might be a way to actually jump in between different, There's also a way to jump in between different edits, and Honestly, I can't remember what exactly that is right now. I think it's the up and down arrow. That's what it is. The up and down arrow will jump in between your edit times, and then your left and right arrow will forward and backwards between one frame. Now this can be really important because if I have this particular footage item and I go to the end of it and hold down the shift key, just start to click and drag and then go to the hold down the shift key, what it does is it snaps to, whoops, there we go. It snaps to the end of this, but it actually is one frame after the end of that. And if I press the left arrow one time, then I'll actually see that footage. And that will come into play as we start to do the next sort of thing, which is the Ken Burns. So let's stop here, save your work. If you want, what you might want to do, by the way, is kind of put your images in order that you think that you might want to use them. I know that I'm going to start off with that cat next, which is cat smacking his lips. And the reason why is because he sees a chicken, and the chicken is going to look back and say, hey, I see you. And then we're going to go, I think what we'll do is we'll go back to that cat doing that, looking, and then we'll have the other cat looking. And then we're going to have the chickens starting to run. Can't really tell that, at least from the way the images are. And then I know that will be the last one. So those are my images in order. The problem with all of them is that they're only 5 seconds each. So we're going to fix that in the next tutorial, and we're going to add what's called the Ken Burns effect. So let's save your work and go on.